Hey team, Richard Tubb here with an interesting new video demo for you. Now, if you're a managed service provider, you know how critical it is to safeguard your clients' Microsoft 365 environments against what are ever-evolving security threats. We've got email phishing, we've got ransomware, we've got data loss, compliance challenges. The risks are growing every single day. So today I'm joined by Adrien Gendre of Hornetsecurity, so we can take a closer look at their Microsoft 365 multi-tenant manager. Adrien, how are you doing?
Hey, very good. Hey, Richard. Thank you so much. Thank you. And hello, everyone. I'm excited actually to be here and having this conversation with you, Richard.
Well, we're looking forward to it. Cybersecurity is at the forefront of pretty much every MSP's minds at the moment. So tell us, what's your role at Hornetsecurity? How do you interact with MSPs in your day-to-day work?
So I'm the Chief Product Officer at Hornetsecurity. So basically my role is I oversee the products, right? So my day-to-day is, I would say, have some internal meetings about, features, specifications, reviewing, challenging to do better, the team. And the second half, it's meeting with customers and partners, MSPs, sometimes before the collaboration, right? Helping to present and position the product. Sometimes during the collaboration, and in that case, we have like peer groups with MSPs and partners where we talk about the roadmap and products. Also, what I do sometimes, and that's what I love the most, actually, it's having unplanned, spontaneous discussion with some MSPs that I know quite well. Asking questions. I have a doubt. I wonder if we should do A and B. What they think of. This is very, very interesting, and yeah, that's what I love the most. Thinking of the features, interacting, playing, showing mock-ups to MSPs about what we're going to do next, and see what's hitting the eyes, right, of the MSPs.
Yeah. I knew you'd be the right person for us to speak to about this. So we'll jump into a video demo shortly. But I guess for the benefit of people who are not familiar with Hornetsecurity's M365 Multi-Tenant Manager, how would you describe its benefits to managed service providers?
Sure. So first, Hornetsecurity, it's a cybersecurity company providing solutions from email security to data protection and compliance and governance, right? Including also awareness in the compliance. And here specifically, we're talking about 365 Multi-Tenant Manager for MSPs. What it does, it's basically a software, so designed for MSPs, right? That helps them to automate their daily tasks. That's how I like to summarize it. It helps the MSPs to have a fully packaged security compliance offer so that they can tell the customers all your security settings are set to the maximum from day one when you start working with me, MSP, and it's continuously monitored. So that's what the product does. And it does that in a way that the TCO for the MSPs is super low, so that they can have a high value service, right, while having a decent margin on it.
I'm excited to look at the product, but before we do, I try to put myself in the shoes of an MSP. I'm a former MSP owner myself, so I've got to ask Adrien, differentiation. So how does 365 Multi-Tenant Manager from Hornetsecurity stand out from the other Microsoft 365 solutions on the market?
So I like to select three. I believe we will see a lot of details right when we go over the demo, but if I select three main ones, first, the setup. That's the whole thing here. We have ultra simplified the setup with the integration into Microsoft Partner Center. So you just connect your MPC, Microsoft Partner Center account, to our product, Multi-Tenant Manager. And here your customers are already synced and the onboarding is already done. So you can you have 200 customers, right? In a few clicks, it's onboarded on the product. That's super important. So first, setup. Second, I would say building your own feature and doing that in a way that it's fully automated. So we will see in the product, but there is already a bunch of settings and libraries and policies that are available for MSPs to automate settings within Microsoft. But they also have, the specificity, the added value that they have built themselves, right? And that the neighbor's MSP doesn't have. They can import that into the product, and I'm sure we'll have the opportunity to go through this. So build your own feature, second thing. And third, this platformization, that the challenge for MSPs is having multiple vendors, multiple products, right? Multiple points of contacts. That's increasing the TCO somehow because they have to manage multiple independent solutions. So this product, 365 Multi-Tenant Manager, is integrated into the Hornetsecurity platform called Control Panel. And we will see in the demo, it's all in one screen. So there are the interactions between all the products, again, to simplify the operation on a daily basis.
Yeah, and TCO, total cost of ownership, that's something we're going to delve into as we go forward here, because MSPs, we know, are very time poor. And so I think this is an opportunity for MSPs to reclaim some of the time that they would otherwise spend, dare I say, messing around with Microsoft 365. So let's jump straight in there. Can you share your screen and walk us through some of the main features of 365 Multi-Tenant Manager?
Sure thing. So in a nutshell, just a few key features. So that's the homepage of, you see 365 Multi-Tenant Manager for the MSPs. Here, it's a very limited set of information on purpose. Here, it's just about whether it's working well or not. What do I mean by working well? The goal of the Multi-Tenant Manager is that it does the monitoring and the enforcing of the securities, policies and settings that you decide. So what you want to see here is whether it's happening on your behalf. That's the whole point. So the first thing we're seeing here is how much within your customers are onboarding or not. And obviously we want to target 100%. That's how you lower your TCO. We are seeing here, good news, the product is doing some checks on some accounts, and that's happening periodically, right, on your behalf. So you can focus on, making new business, new installation for customers, etc. The securities here are applied. And last but not least, I have here more detailed operation history of what happened on the account. It goes well, it doesn't go well, what's going on. We can go after some details. And here there is something interesting. I have the message that I'm trying to apply a security setting on a tenant, but the tenant doesn't have the license. Okay. So the product also helps for the alignment, right, of the policies you are trying to apply. So that's just the overview. What we are talking about is tenants. So you have here the list of your policies, whether they are onboarded or not, and you're seeing whether they're compliant or not based on your templates. That's the next screen. What's templates? It's the list of policies and settings that you put together, and you apply these templates to some tenants, and you want this to be applied continuously. And of course, these templates are populated from settings and policies. So we have here the list populated, provided by Hornetsecurity, and you have by category, so some Entra settings, HN settings, we have SharePoints, and so on. And same thing in the policies here, so Intune and so on. So that's here the main screen of Tenant Manager.
So the templates that you mentioned there, is that something that comes pre-populated from Hornetsecurity? That's not, because I know a lot of MSPs are going to be looking at this and saying, great, but do we have to do the hard work of setting up the standard?
Indeed. What we don't want is to have a blank sheet. It's the most difficult.
Yeah.
So when you go to templates, you have here templates that are provided by default by Hornetsecurity. And what we have here on my demo account, many templates that we have created to do some adjustments. And what I always recommend to do is just taking one of the default ones, first checking whether it fits what they want to apply. But if not, then we can just clone, so they duplicate the template, and then they can customize it. So they go inside, they use the default one provided by Hornetsecurity, and then they decide to add or remove or change values, settings, and the policies. That's, I think, the easiest for MSPs.
Makes a lot of sense. And the templates that you're talking about, policies, can you apply them granularly across, could you apply across a lot of tenants but exclude some tenants from that?
Indeed, there are two ways to deploy them. Okay. So you're seeing here, right? So I'm selecting this baseline template, or I can select baseline security. We have assigned template. So if I do this, I will have my list of tenants, and I can decide to apply the template on these tenants. But there is also, what I love best is bulk assigned templates. And here what I will see is all the tenants that don't already have a template. And I will click on all of them if I want, Diamond Wizard, and I will apply the template on these tenants at once.
Got it. And something that comes to mind is you're going to have MSPs who have got help desks with multiple engineers on. Presumably, they can all access this. Is there an audit trail or any type of security that stops, let's just say, a new engineer has joined the MSP's help desk team, gets a little bit click happy, Adrien, and applies a policy to a load of clients that he shouldn't have done? Is there any sort of restrictions in place there?
So what you see is everything that is happening. So I didn't show this screen, the operation history. I didn't show it because at first, just from the look and feel, it's a bit boring to look at. But with the use case you exposed, it's super, you see exactly what's happening on all the tenants of the product. And when you want to look at some details, you decide to check and you will see the details, preserve what happened. So when you wonder what happened and you need to go back on a specific case, here you will be able to drill down. Yes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I've got plenty more questions around this aspect and how you can apply policies and things. But perhaps we skipped over earlier, perhaps because it's so easy, the deployment of this tool. So an MSP watching this might say, yeah, okay, how do we go about deploying this? So is that an easy process? What does it look like?
It's a super easy process. So the first time you will just connect your MP, Microsoft Partner Center. So the first time you go on the screen, it's going to query you to connect your Microsoft Partner Center. So you get redirected to the Microsoft authentication screen with the authorization for the API. Once you have done this process, we say thank you, and you will see this screen with your tenants populated here. That's it. It really literally takes within seconds. What you want to do next is looking at the templates. So like discussed, either you use some templates or you fine-tune with your own, and bulk, I will recommend on your customers.
Got it. And is there some degree of logging there? I saw you showed an error message earlier on saying this particular client has got a license where that particular policy is not available. Is there logging? So if you applied a policy across all of your tenants, for instance, and it didn't apply to some of them, how does that error get shown up to you?
So you will see that in the detail with here. So all the errors, whether some partially applied or not at all were run, it can be multiple sources of error. So license issue, right? Or it can be also you made a mistake or a strange parameter in the customization they have done. If you create your own setting, or policy, if you have some issues, the PowerShell, we will look at that later, I think. We also raised errors, but you can see it here. So what you want to have here is basically all yes after the operation has run.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then it shows up there. Something that springs to mind watching this is the idea of, first of all, multi-tenants, of course. Lots of MSPs are going to be watching this, and immediately it's going to be a revelation. They're going into each of their M365 tenants and applying policies or applying actions. But the idea of applying bulk actions. So could you give me an example, a use case where, let's just say you want to apply an action to all of your tenants or 50% of your tenants. How easy is it to set that up?
Sure. And you're right, there is this multi-tenant aspect, but there's also this multi-product aspect within Microsoft. Because when you look at it, when you log in on the admin panel of Microsoft, and you see a bunch of products on the left, and you see that there are already quite a lot. And then there is at the bottom, see more or show more. So you're like, so how many more products should I look at to make sure the security is up to date? And when you click there, you see 19 panels. So even on one tenant, you have to go through potentially 19 panels to make sure all the settings are to the ones you want to have the highest security level. Right? So if you have, let's say, 20, 30, 50 customers, you do 50 times 90 panels. You have to browse through in order to make sure the settings are up to date. And that's what we are doing here. So let's do an exercise here. I'm gonna select, I think, hardened security, because that's the one with the most content in it. Okay. And I want to assign this template to a specific tenant. So if I assign here, and I will select a tenant where I know it doesn't have a template already, I will select this one. And what you're seeing here is interesting. You see first the content of your template. So you see something for Entra, policies here, Entra, iTunes, so on. What we ask you to decide is whether you want to notify or enforce. It means notify if there is something non-compliant, so a setting has changed within Microsoft, you just get notified, you have to take action. But my favorite is just enforce, because what's happening is when the setting changes, the next time we check, the product will change to the default template value. And this is how you can guarantee to your customer that whatever happens, whatever the number of people who can have access to his administration panel, you will always make sure the settings are not changing. And so here you can, if you want, change them, otherwise you keep it as it was defined in the template. You have the same for the settings. Some settings you can even manage whether you want to split to some specific users. That's where we can narrow down, right, from actually multi-tenant to some specific users in a specific set of customers. You can actually do this here. And if I'm not changing, I click go next. I can here just double check my whole list, what's enforced on my whole policies and settings, and it's done. So from that moment, what the product does is two things. Right now, it's going on the tenants of Elizabeth here. For now, it says 0% compliance, and it's actually running the policies and settings to deploy them. So you don't have to go through the 19 panels, click, search where it is, etc. Right? We have the API integration to do that, and then it's going to do it continuously, right? Every 3 hours, we are checking and making sure we go back to the main policy. I just showed that for one customer, right? And you had asked me how you can do that for a set of customers. Well, we just go back to templates. I will also do a second example here, and I will bulk assign. But I already use my end customer. But let's imagine you select 5 customers here, 5 customers. The only difference with what I have shown previously is if you had already a template assigned, we will first ask you, okay, what do you want to do with the existing values? Right? You want to keep it there, or you want to erase them? So I have the case here, I selected an empty tent, but if you had already a template assigned, we ask you what you want to do with the existing one. You said, leave it there. Then you go to this screen, and it's the same thing. You do next, finished, like we have just seen it. And instead of one tenant, we're going to apply it on 10, 20, 50 tenants at once.
Fantastic. So 2 questions coming out of this. The first one, I think you alluded to this, but you don't have to use Hornetsecurity's M365 Multi-Tenant Manager on all of your clients. I think you'd be crazy not to, but there's going to be some MSPs saying this client needs to be left alone, or they've got their internal IT team, or whatever it might be. So that's the first question. That's right, isn't it? So even though you're connecting it to your Microsoft 365 tenants, you don't have to apply it to all of those clients. Is that right?
You don't, indeed. You have this granular setting. However, I have an advice for this, because there is a business opportunity for the MSPs. What I would recommend is having indeed an offering where it's fully managed. So you enforce into the customer's hands off, I manage, and actually the product does.
Yes.
Then for the customers who have their own internal IT, they still need your advisory, right, on the highest security settings. So I would recommend that to set up some specific templates for this, put notify, so that as an MSP, when you have periodic meetings or continuously or on a support call, right, you bring up these topics. Hey, by the way, your password policy is not, the best one. You can do this and that. And I think you start, engaging in a conversation to sell more services, more consulting to customers.
Adrien, you read my mind. That's exactly what I was going to ask there about the consultancy opportunities. So for those MSPs who are watching, who have perhaps got co-managed IT, downstream IT, or have not got a full managed service with their client, this is a great way to say to them, hey, we happen to notice that you could harden your security. Do you want help with that? And this is where, in my experience, the MSP can start adding real value and proving their worth to the client.
Indeed.
Yeah. And the second question I was going to ask is, obviously, Hornet 365 Multi-Tenant Manager looks like a really great way to manage all of your M365 tenants, but it doesn't preclude an engineer or perhaps even a client going into 365 directly and making changes. So if a change happens outside of M365 Multi-Tenant Manager, does your software automatically apply the template again, or does it flag up to you and say something's changed elsewhere?
That's what you will decide when you apply. So if you have notify and someone changes behind, right, within Microsoft directly, then you will get an alert. And if you are enforced, you can try to change. We go back and still apply the setting that you want to have as an MSP.
Got it. And how often does it do that scanning? So let's just say an engineer goes in and changes a security feature in the morning. I don't know, hypothetically, to make something easier to get some troubleshooting done. How long does that feature stay unhardened, unticked before Hornetsecurity jumps in and says, no, I'm going to change that back?
It's just a few minutes, right? We go by quite often. We have seen during the session that when we were starting, we were scanning these tenants, and we're already rescanning. When I applied this tenant we did, right? You can see here 40% compliance. We have already run, and it's been 4 minutes that we have done it. So it's really within a few minutes. We continuously go back and check as soon as we have the first check.
And for anybody who's watched numerous of these type of video demos that I've done, you can always see when I'm smiling, it's usually because the person the other end of the video demo is anticipating some of the questions I've got. So that's a good sign, Adrien. So let's crack on here. So we've already looked at some of the bulk actions there, but automation, of course, we're recording this in 2025. Automation is high on the agenda of lots of MSPs to try and reduce their, as you said earlier, total cost of ownership there. So are there any other automation features that you could think of that you could demonstrate to us now?
So there is one we I don't have it for the demo here, but there is one that we have worked with some MSPs. I think it's the best use of the product, because when we go to the core settings, and you can decide to create your own. What's happening here is you have the possibility, when you open one, you have the possibility to create, it's a low-code interface. When you do this low-code interface, you set the variables that you will use in your code. So these variables are then used when you say the templates, right? You don't go back to the code, you just change these variables. And then you write PowerShell scripts. And what I have seen, for example, is depending on the result of some of the checks, the MSPs has used the PowerShell to actually trigger Zendesk tickets using the API, because it's true code, right? So as soon as you can interact with the APIs, then you can do everything you want and automate everything you want, even beyond this product, right? So you can imagine numerous pipelines and workflows that you can trigger.
Interesting, yeah. And I asked that question because I know there's going to be very advanced MSPs watching who are probably thrilled with what you've put in front and going, oh, can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do this? So there's the grains there of some of the things that you can do in it. But let's get back to the sort of the core idea behind the 365 multi-tenant manager. So I talked about automation is forefront of mind for MSPs at the moment. But as we go into 2025 and beyond, compliance, I think, is a huge growth area for MSPs. And many MSPs watching this are not even aware of the potential for compliance and what it means. In fact, Adrien, I would say many MSPs look at compliance as a bit of a pain that they have to deal with, when really it's an opportunity, isn't it? So in terms of Hornet 365 multi-tenant manager, what about compliance? How does it make it easier for 365 MSPs to apply compliance to 365?
So it does the whole thing for compliance. I like to see it as a technical insurance for MSPs. We've had a specific case here. So I'm based out of France. I think everybody could have detected the accent. But we had a very interesting case here in France where a customer filed a lawsuit against MSPs when the customer was hacked for lack of advisor for the security settings. And the MSP was charged guilty for that. And it's quite scary, actually, because then you're like an insurance. You have to anticipate everything. But how you anticipate everything? You anticipate everything by having a list of things you want to have in place. So when you choose an insurance for your house, they will ask you, what's the parking space for your car? Do you have an alarm? You have to close the windows, and so on, right? They have this list. And if you don't do that, then it's not my fault, right? That's how they behave. So we want to be fully onboarded with the customers, but we need to help MSPs to say, listen, have everything in place for your security, and we need to help them to ensure that this everything in place is monitored and applied continuously. And I think that's where Multi-Tenant Manager for MSPs helps them, because they can have the list, from certification, from NIS2 and so on, of the things that companies must apply. And we are providing the templates for this. And then we can tell customers, listen, I provide you all of this, and this is my consulting advisory in terms of security practices. And I can guarantee that whatever happens, even if you have someone crazy in your environment changing the parameters, I will still guarantee that the setting will be to the highest level. And I think in a world where a lot of things are happening in court halls, it's super important for MSPs to have such tools to guarantee the compliance level.
I think that is such a good point. I was thinking more around regulatory compliance, GDPR and all these different things. Wherever you're watching in the world, there's going to be some sort of local governance and compliance that you need to help your clients meet. But what you're talking about here is we are seeing more and more. I came across an MSP in the Netherlands who, like your MSP that you mentioned, that story, got sued by a client because they didn't put in enough due diligence, didn't put in enough demonstrate that they were helping their client to stay safe. So when the client was breached, the client's insurance company then turned to the MSP and said, this is your fault. So we are moving into what could be a really worrying time for MSPs, where the mantle of responsibility lies on our shoulders. But you're talking this product here, it goes a long way to demonstrating we're doing all we can here to make sure that you're compliant. So that's a real peace of mind for MSPs, isn't it?
True. And let's be honest, the scope of security that the MSPs have to deal with is just increasing, right? You have the amount of technical solutions that is augmenting, but also the regulations that come and add content. But they cannot increase proportionally the services they sell to customers, right? Because customers are not willing to pay this increase, right, in services or solutions. So they need to be able, the MSPs, to increase this scope without having to necessarily increase their cost of operational ownership or the price for the customer, because it's a strong matter. I have a lot of MSPs that tell me, I see this solution is nice and this is nice, but I cannot increase my price package for the customer. So how do I fit that? And so this is what Multi-Tenant Manager is about. You have a new regulation, a new product, fine, 10 more settings, 10 more policies, right? But you still have the same one click to apply them. So this scales operations for the MSPs.
Yeah. I think the bottom line for me is there's going to be a number of MSPs that are very advanced. They're going to be looking at this and going, this makes our life easier. There's also going to be a lot of MSPs, Adrien, who at the moment don't do a lot of the managed part of managed services. They just sell 365 licenses to client, set them up, help them with technical support and things like that. This is a really easy and powerful way for them to start offering additional value to clients, isn't it? To say, look, we can manage it for you. Don't worry, which again, as a former MSP owner, I know that's where the real power comes from, the real value from demonstrating to your clients, we've got all this sorted for you.
Indeed, and it's a challenge for MSPs because some of them, they are saying that the keeping up the margins with the evolution to SaaS, software as a service, is complicated, right? Because before resellers, right, before being MSPs, they could have their appliance, right? They split around multiple customers and could have a decent margin. Now the vendors are telling the customers how much margin, and Microsoft in the first place, right? How much margin? And the feedback I have from MSPs is that especially Microsoft, it just goes down, right? The margin that is left on MSPs. So the way for the MSPs to keep growing and having a decent margin back, right? It's having these services. But services, high margin is difficult because it's people, right? So you need the automation and the tool to have high value services, but low cost of ownership, low operation cost.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into the weeds a little bit here. So reporting, you showed us a little bit of that earlier, but what sort of reporting and analytics features does this platform have for MSPs? Because my mind is already jumping ahead, Adrien, with the idea of how you can demonstrate to your clients that you're keeping them safe.
Indeed. So what we can see in more details, let's say I will take this tenant here, Belanat CA. So as an MSP in terms of reporting at scale, okay, what's happening within my customer? We have this list here, okay, some are compliant, fine, some are not, okay, so I need to deep dive, right? And then when you deep dive, of course, you want to prove your customer that some stuff have happened so that they can, they have the highest security level. And so what the product provides is the evolution of the compliance history. So in this case, we're at 83, and it's a demo account, so it's not much, right? But you want to show the customer that you start from X, let's say 60, right? Because you don't have MFA on this specific customer, because it has not deployed the best password policy, because we have to talk to users first, and so on. And so then you will deploy the security policies in terms of, for the organization, and one by one, as the customer is willing to deploy this, then you increase the security level. And here you demonstrate that the security level is increased. And when a configuration goes wrong in a way that is changed to a non-compliant value, then you will see a drop and a catch up. So you can also add to the customer that whatever happens, we stay steady in, or growing in terms of compliance level. And when you go into the details for this specific customer, this is what we are looking at here. It's the list of settings for this Bellanote customer, and I can see what's compliant and not compliant. What I can MSP when I see non-compliant, I can easily remediate. And in that case, I can have an event for the customer, and I can justify on my quarterly meetings. Listen, we've had favorites. You're not in enforcing mode because you want maybe to double check with the customer somehow. Sure. So we have remediated this for you, and this you can justify the activity also and the value of the services. So if I click on remediate here, I will just switch to compliant because we are just pushing straight the right feature within Microsoft. You also might want to investigate, okay, what has been changed? And so if I click in more details, I see here on the left side what's in my template, and on the right side, and here I will see the difference is about here, it's the number of days for the password to expire. It's from 90 to 60. So here it's not too bad, right? But that's the key things that you can expose to customers. And of course, again, this one is in Notify, right? But the goal, to my opinion, is having all enforced so that you don't have to show that, and you just go back to the charts, to the operation history, and you can expose the customer. This is what happened, on monthly or quarter basis.
Brilliant. There's something you said that I want to pick up on that I think is a really important learning lesson for MSPs as well. So many MSPs produce reports that show to their client, hey, everything is great. Don't worry about it. We've got it all under control. But what you really want to demonstrate to the client is that things do go wrong, and then you've remediated them. So when you said like it dropped down and then immediately went back up, if I were an MSP watching this, I would demonstrate that to the client to say, this went wrong or this happened, but don't worry, we fixed it straight away, because that demonstrates the real value to the client, doesn't it? That saying, rather than everything's okay, no, things do go wrong. But we've got your back.
Exactly, because the worst case scenario, I think, it's if the customer has the feeling that
it's never the case. What is it we're paying you for? They say, yeah.
Voilà. But the case in security, but if you have difficulty to demonstrating that, then the customer will have this feeling and more the revenue, or potentially just trying to scale down the package, right? So it's super important to show it went wrong, it was fixed. Voilà. No event for your customer. It's just our job.
Yeah, I love that. So really good point. I'm a massive geek, Adrien. You probably have guessed that already. So what does this technology look like under the hood? Tell us a little bit about what went into you and the team at Hornetsecurity building this product with M365.
The challenge in this product is the scaling, because you can imagine what's happening is there are hundreds of thousands of tenants that are monitored, and we have spikes of activity when we checked some of the configuration. So for the infrastructure and development team, it was super important to have an architecture that actually scales natively, but super fast. So it's all Kubernetes in the back and all microservices. and we can spawn and turn off, right? Services or components right away as the demand goes.
Yeah.
We have this interesting challenge also. What was how to run PowerShell scripts, on the backend. That is not necessarily Windows based on the backend, right? So here, this was done. There is this layer on top for the customers with this low code interface that we have seen earlier. And to me, what's crazy and we don't necessarily realize is when you write a PowerShell, you can say, I will run the PowerShell from my computer, right? And that's it. So why need this product? This is replacing any infrastructure, scheduler, monitoring that usually put in place when you develop your own script and you want to make sure the script runs, right? You need the infra, you need to deploy. Once you have it deployed, you need to have your scheduler, your cron or whatever, right, to run periodically. Then what if it goes wrong? You need to be alerted, right, to restart the script when something goes wrong. All of this is out, right, with this low-code interface. Just copy-paste your PowerShell. We have the infrastructure. It's like an infrastructure as a service for PowerShell runners, right? That's what's providing. And the security here is crazy also, because it's about access to tenants, right? So it's super critical. So Microsoft has a super architecture with the authorization rights, so we just rely on this. But within the product, it's all encrypted at rest, and high compliance standards are, of course, applied for the security here behind it.
Oh, good. I'm glad you asked that question. I was going to ask about cybersecurity there. Once again, you've anticipated one of my questions. So this is an extremely impressive looking product. I would go as far as to say it's a no-brainer for any MSP that sells and maintains and manages M365, which, let's be honest, Adrien, is virtually every MSP. But of course, we've talked about things do go wrong. You're based over there in France. I'm here in the northeast of England, and we've got people watching this video from, the UK, Europe, Ireland, further afield, the USA, Australia, South Africa. So tell us about Hornetsecurity's technical support. What does that look like? And, if an MSP's got an issue, how do they contact you? Tell us a bit more.
So just a few numbers to start and then explain how is the organization. Okay. Average response time, 1 hour, measured, right? Not committed on the paper and you have up and downs. When you look at the average, we respond within the hour. Average resolution time, less than 2 hours. And the satisfaction rate of the customers is 98%. So how we deliver such quality in the services? First, it's about spreading over the world. You get the example of the locations. So we need to have the presence so that we have people always available and awake, right? We don't need to wake them up. They're already awake for you, full brain capacity. All over the world. And so we have support spread in Argentina, Canada, Spain, France, Germany, Macedonia, Malta, so that we can cover the entire globe, right? Again, with active teams that are available for you. And this teams is key, I think, because support is about people, right? You can chat, you can email, you can phone, whatever you do, even the chat, right? In the trend of chatbots, whatever you do, you have someone behind. So when you chat, you actually have someone you chat to. And this is how I think we get to the high quality support, because when you have a question, you don't want to go through the classic qualification of the chatbot, tell me if it's this and that, etc. And you're like, how can I talk to someone? Because you will understand right away. So you have someone right away, whether it's phone, email, and chat, all over the world.
Wonderful. That's good to hear. And let's talk about the thing that's on everybody's mind at the moment. Okay, licensing costs. So without going into pounds and pence and dollars and cents, which I'm sure, we'll give details of how people can go and find out more about this product. But how is the product licensed to MSPs and their end users?
It's super simple. We're just mapping the MSP's business model, right? Because we understand that this product can be stacked under, a service bundle for the MSPs. So it's monthly per end user seat, the business model.
Got it. Wonderful. And how do you show the value of this product? So hopefully lots of MSPs will be watching this and immediately get it. But there's going to be some MSPs are watching and go, this is great, but it's another cost to me. I've got arguments with that approach, but how do you approach that conversation, Adrien? How do you show the value of the product, the total cost of ownership that we talked about?
So the value indeed is about how much resource you can save or reallocate to other value services thanks to this product. So there is a web page on the website. So let me put it out here. So what we are doing discussions with MSPs. We have calculated how much time you can save by running the product. And of course, it depends on the size of your business and the size of your. And so if you scroll down from the 365 Multi-Tenant Manager page, you can see here this little calculator. It's very straightforward.
Yep.
You say how many you manage and how many new tenants you have in terms of growth, right? And you see here how much time you are saving. And there is one number I remember to threshold when we discussed to the MSPs. It was when you have 60 tenants, you don't need to be huge MSPs, right? 60 tenants, and you are growing 20% roughly. The growing part is important because the bigger cost is about onboarding the customers, right? The first click deploying the policy, that's usually taking a lot of time for the MSPs going through the different screens. So 60 customers, tenants, and 20% growth. This was exactly the threshold 1 FTE saved every year for the MSP, and it's huge actually.
Yeah, wonderful. And the reason I asked that question as well, we're going to have MSP business owners watching this, but we're also going to have some help desk and service desk engineers watching this video and going, this is really cool. How do I now go to the boss and say, we should have this in place? So the calculator's there on the website, and we'll include that in the show notes for this so that anybody can go and find out about that. I've got another question. So MSPs, obviously, we alluded to at the start of our conversation, there's lots of options on the market, lots of different tools around M365. But MSPs as a whole, Adrien, as you will know, have loads of different platforms already. They have PSA, RMM, all of those different things. So talk to us about integrations, specifically with Helpdesk and PSA tools.
So this is the beauty here. The way we have built these custom settings that you can create, since we have decided to completely expose the PowerShell script, and we have done this for two reasons. First, we know some MSPs have created many scripts already, but they had the hurdle of hosting these scripts, etc. So they can import them here and do the infrastructure part. And second reason, when you have this programming language here, then you can do everything. So like I was saying earlier, an MSP has triggered some Zendesk tickets for events based on the APIs. You could imagine also triggering some of the RMM, right? Like the ConnectWise, also triggering tickets with this. As soon as you have APIs to interact with, this approach can help you to automate everything you have within your environment. And I'm so excited actually as the product ramps up with more MSPs. I'm so excited to see the new kind of integration they are doing, because it's amazing. Sometimes you have discussions and they I could do this and that, and you're like, yeah, I didn't think about it, and you're seeing the magic happening when you put that in hands of MSPs.
I'm excited about it as well. Again, you can see from the smile on my face, this is a really powerful product. The thing I love the most about this, Adrien, is we've already said MSPs are time poor. So out of the box, Hornetsecurity, really easy to set up. And you can achieve a high level of standards across all of your clients within minutes, certainly within an hour or so. But underneath, you've got the potential to go deeper and to do more automation and more things. But there's so many MSPs that I see who bring on board a product and say, yeah, we only use 10% of it. And they get frustrated. But out of the box, it just works, doesn't it?
It does. And I think we will have both cases here, to be honest, with this product. I think many MSPs will say, well, I don't have the resources to create custom scripts. What I want to have is a tool that saves me time, across all the products from Microsoft. So for these, they will just go to the settings that we are populating. And every month we release new settings. As we discover, new updates from Microsoft, we release them in the product. So they will just use this just make, some of the values if they want to change, and that's it. And then we also know, and I have met some already, more like geeky MSPs or maybe bigger scale, they have the resources to, and they're having like super creative ideas to do things with this product and the open capabilities.
Oh, wonderful. Hornetsecurity, let's talk about you as a business. So there's going to be MSPs watching this who are vaguely aware of Hornetsecurity. Some are already partners. But of course, M365 Multi-Tenant Manager is just one product in a big portfolio of cybersecurity products that Hornetsecurity have got. So tell us about the company and tell us a bit about some of your other products there as well.
Sure. So I think the best to show all the products is to go to this screen here, Total Protection. So here we are showing all the products that are available within the Hornetsecurity. So like I was saying, Hornetsecurity, it's a platform, it's a cybersecurity platform. So platform in a way that it's hosting multiple products. And we will have maybe the opportunity, but you have here that is not that big, but hosting multiple products here already. What I have first, what we are seeing here, so this plan 2, and there is plan 1. So let's start with plan 1. And security frame is organized on plans, and there are 4 plans. So plan 1, I have malware protection, email encryption, email signature disclaimer. This is the starting point for email security. What goes to plan 2, then advanced threat protection, but you also have some compliance feature for legal framework, especially with archiving and redundancy with email security. Email continuity, I'm sorry. When we go to plan 3, here we bring data protection. So you have backup for 365 or VM or hardware errors, right? And with 365, you have SharePoint, Teams, mailboxes, OneDrive, and so on. And if you continue the last one is huge. It's massive in terms of products. You see how much we have added here in the plan 4, where the positioning is its compliance and awareness. So you're from the previous plan, of course, but you also have here some key products that I love. This one is permission management. This one is helping you to apply, the least privilege approach, but on all the files and documents that you are creating and sharing within Teams, SharePoint, and so on. Then you have, let me go down a bit. Then you have security awareness here. That is also super critical within companies now. It helps to train users, to the highest awareness level. It does this in a fully automated way. AI recipient validation is the DLP for accidental data loss. And last but not least, in wrapping up very fast, recently, it's the DMARC manager. So the DMARC product helps you to set up DMARC on your own domain name, right, to protect your brand. So that's the whole Hornet Galaxy. Trying not to be too long for the number of products.
Yeah, and we could jump into video demos of each of them, and perhaps we will in the future, Adrien. The two that spring out to me, security awareness training, I think is a huge growth area for MSPs. You and I both know, and people watching know, that human beings are always the weakest link in any cybersecurity. So yeah, I really like the idea behind that. But also the permission manager. That's a really interesting one to me, because we often end up sharing documents externally or whatever it might look like, and then it gets forgotten about. So perhaps we could revisit that at some point, but just briefly tell us about Permission Manager, some of the use cases for that.
Let me just show you one screen on Tenant Manager. Yeah. I think it's super demonstrative. Here we go up. So the use case of this product, it's you are talking with some colleagues or someone an external contact on Teams, and you are uploading a file. And what's happening is this file is shared with this person forever. Yeah. And it's creating anonymous links. So it's anonymous links. Okay, you can say, you need to find the ID, right, the token. But it's still some links that are available outside the company if you can find the tenant somehow. And we can trust hackers to be super creative in finding these kind of things. And what's happening, since the usage of such collaborative tools is increasing, when you first deploy the product, when we did it internally, actually at Hornetsecurity, and we deployed the product, you can see how many links are open. And we had 16,000 open sharings within the company.
I can well believe it. Yeah.
And we have a chart. We do some presentation, and we explain the product, and we take our first use case. We have a chart where we show the number of open permissions that we have on files. Then we set up the product. June. Why? Because what the product does, you decide what policy you want to apply on these files. You can set up, auto expiration. You can set up that you cannot share externally. You can strengthen the security, but with an interface between you and I that is much more user-friendly than SharePoint.
Yeah, definitely.
And especially you have SharePoint that you use every day, but for some critical settings, you have to go to the old SharePoint, right? And it's actually really drilling here. So we have this interface that is much more user-friendly, where you choose to define a policy and you set up yes, no, how many days, etc. Just the critical settings to ensure that you have the least privilege approach on your files.
Yeah.
And the product is this one, auto-remediating. We want that there is no additional effort to happen on the side or the CISO side, and no additional effort on the user side also, because it's just another security product and asked to deal with. So total permission remediated, it means the product has, based on the policy, revoked some access, narrowed down some access, etc. And again, it's happening, you can be hands off. That's the whole point of information manager. And so last but not least, Copilot. Because the permissions I'm talking about here, you can say, okay, some users have access to files and it's been long open, or we have access because they have been added to a group and I forgot that I actually shared with this group previously, and so on. All of these scenarios are happening. So in a company, every day you have files that users have access to that they are not supposed to have. They have to find the file, right? So somehow you can say, listen, I can live with it for some time, even though I don't recommend, right? But some CISOs say that. Now you have Copilot. What's happening with Copilot? You just chat, and Copilot will use every file you have access to answer to your questions.
Yeah.
And we have made some demo, right? You can bring up some salary information, confidential projects, etc., just by talking with Copilot, and he will just put the information in front of your eyes, and you don't have to search for it anymore. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. I can imagine some people have already tried this. An engineer on the server desk asking Copilot, "What does my colleague get paid?" And if you've not locked down the permissions properly, there it will tell you. So yeah, that's just one obvious way to avoid those things. This has been incredibly eye-opening for me, Adrien. Thank you for going through the Hornetsecurity portfolio, because M365 Multi-Tenant Manager, I believe, is the tip of the iceberg here. And I think MSPs watching are immediately going to get the idea that there is so much more we can offer to our clients. There is so much more we can do internally as well. So thank you for going into that. A couple of sort of closing questions as we come through, because we've covered a lot of ground here. So for those of us in Europe, you're in France, I'm in the UK, GDPR compliant. So do Hornetsecurity store any data anywhere? And if so, does it meet local regulatory compliance?
Yes. So we have a multi-region strategy with data centers in multiple regions. Of course, you can imagine, as a European company, like born, and raised in Europe, the product was already designed to be multi-region, because that's how Europe is made, right? It's not one market, you have multiple countries. And so there are data centers in Germany, in France, right? But also in Canada, in the US. So they have this approach where basically the data can stay local, especially the critical data, right? If we're talking about email traffic or some specific information, we keep it GDPR compliant in the proper region. It's super important.
Wonderful. And we already talked a little bit about licensing. We'll give people details of where to go and find out more about the product. But in terms of client MSPs who are watching this and saying, can I dip my toe in the water? Is there a free trial? Is there 30-day trial? What does it look like?
So you can trial all the Hornet products. Actually, that's the point. It's super easy.
there we go. We lost each other for a moment.
Okay, I was saying you can just try out all the Hornet products.
Fantastic.
Yeah. You lost me?
Oh, there we go. We're back again.
No, I was finished.
I think it's the internet gods telling us to cut this short, but I think we've covered most of it. We'll edit this a little bit out, by the way. But yeah, let's just do that one more time just to make sure. So, Adrien, is there a free trial or something along those lines for MSPs to dip their toe in and see what the product looks like?
Yes, it is super simple within the Hornet offerings because all the products can be tested with a POC or a trial license.
Oh, wonderful. Fantastic. So we come to the point now where, of course, the people watching this, they're excited to find out more. So if any MSPs watching this want to find out more about Hornetsecurity or Hornetsecurity M365 Multi-Tenant Manager, or continue the conversation with you, Adrien, because you're clearly really knowledgeable about M365, what's the best way for them to reach you and to find out more about the company?
So, of course, the website is the best entry point, right? You can use the contact page. You can refer to our sales team. We have a customer success team. Also, I also encourage the existing Hornet MSPs, right, to contact the customer success and look at the other products. And if you're still wondering whether you should contact or not, I think there is one page that is interesting on the website. It's the case studies. So we expose multiple case studies from MSPs. And I was checking, to prepare our meeting here. Okay, what are the latest case studies? And I have this one here at that point, because he says something super interesting. I added the sentence on the side. His approach, he says, we never lost any of our customers in fixed term contracts, as we believe if we don't do a good job, we don't deserve the customer.
Yes, I agree 100%. Yeah, my MSP, we used to have 30-day contracts. Now, I know we could go into a different video, Adrien, about the pros and cons of long-term contract, but I believe you live and die by your service, so I couldn't agree more.
And I think it's super interesting to see, and there's a whole video, right, to look at. It's super interesting to see how they actually rely on all the Hornet products. So they are using the plan 4, the one with the email security, data protection, compliance, governance products, all the ones that we have demoed today. And they are showing that basically, Hornet is truly and try very hard to be MSP friendly and actually backing up the MSP's business model. And in this case, this MSP, I really love his approach to be super flexible and just driven by how much hard he works for the customers. It's the same in the business model, and it also shows somehow the quality of the products if he can have this saying with using the Hornet products.
I love it. I love it. And I know for the benefit of viewers and listeners as well, we've created a page on Tubblog, the hub for MSP. So if you go to tubb.co/Hornetsecurity, we've pulled together loads of different links, not only about M365 Multi-Tenant Manager, but lots of other areas that Hornetsecurity are doing interesting things as well. So you can go and check that out. We'll include every link that Adrien has mentioned and everything we've talked about in the show notes for this as well. But Adrien, this has been fantastic. Thank you for taking time out of your day to demo this to me, because as I said earlier, not only as a geek am I really interested in what's happening, but I think we've really demonstrated to MSPs, if you're running M365 Multi-Tenant Manager from Hornetsecurity, this is looking like a no-brainer.
Thank you, Richard. It was awesome.
My pleasure. Thank you, everyone.